Hey everyone, my name is Daniel Ryder and I am founder of dadtography.com, and this is our video review comparison of the Royal Caribbean Majesty of the Seas and the Carnival Liberty. These are the two ships that leave out of Port Canaveral for each of those cruise lines sailing on Bahamas itineraries. My family and I have been on both of these recently within the past 3 months or less, and I wanted to put this review together to give some firsthand information on some of the differences, what I liked about each, and who I thought the winner in a Carnival versus Royal Caribbean comparison would be. So, as a family, we decided not too long ago that we really enjoyed cruising. As a self-professed workaholic, it's tough for me to disconnect sometimes from my 9 to 5 job, but when I go on a cruise ship, I don't feel guilty about disconnecting myself. It's easy for me to relax on cruises, and it's really just worked out well for our family in general. In this video review, we're going to cover 6 or so different direct comparison areas between the Carnival Liberty and the Royal Caribbean Majesty of the Seas. We're going to start off by comparing the ships themselves. They are distinctly different from each other, so we'll cover some of the differences in what we liked and disliked about each of those. We'll talk about the cabins. Specifically, my family has been on both ships in an interior cabin. We also were in a balcony stateroom in the Carnival Liberty as well, but we'll focus the comparison for this video at least on the balcony staterooms. We'll talk about dining. That's probably the #1 question that I get as a cruise traveler and as a blogger. Is it true that blah 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 is better than blah blah blah? So we'll talk about how we thought that the dining experiences compared on the Royal Caribbean versus the Carnival ship. We'll talk about, probably on a short cruise like this, one of the most important aspects of the ship, which is the pools, the SUNDECKS, and the water slides. We'll talk a little bit about entertainment. There's not a whole lot of entertainment on these ships because they are such short duration cruises, but we will talk about them just a little bit. We'll talk about the itinerary. Even though they're both Bahamas cruises, the itineraries do vary slightly between the Carnival and the Royal Caribbean. And to read a full review and to see a pretty extensive photo gallery, be sure to check out dadtography.com. In the travel section, there's a blog post up with all kinds of images up there as well. The first aspect of the review that we're going to cover is actually going to be the ships themselves. You'd think that the ships would be very comparable, in a lot of ways they are, but there are some distinct differences, and I want to make sure that those are covered. #1 is the age of the ships. The Carnival Liberty is quite a bit newer than the Royal Caribbean ship. The Liberty was christened and launched in 2005, and the Royal Caribbean Majesty of the Seas way back in 1992. You would think that that would give the Carnival a distinct advantage over the condition of the ship, and that just didn't really ring true for me. I much prefer the condition of the Royal Caribbean ship, the Majesty of the Seas. It feels like they've used more durable materials. The paint is better, the wood is better. It needs some stuff, don't get me wrong. It's been a few years since either of them have seen any significant work. But from a first impression and overall condition of the ship, I have to award the winner of this particular category to the Royal Caribbean ship. The next aspect that we're going to compare will be the cabins. We stayed in both cruise ships' interior cabins. We think that we like interior cabins in general more. Higher decks seem to have more noise and less soundproofing. I don't have any scientific proof for that. We definitely sleep better in interior cabins, to the point that we even have to set alarms sometimes because it's so dark and quiet. We don't have to do that at home, so more sleep on vacation is definitely a good thing. So both things have those advantages. We both, all of my family experienced really good sleep on both the Carnival Liberty and the Majesty of the Seas. The advantage actually goes to Carnival and the Liberty in this case. The interior cabin on the Carnival Liberty was a little bit bigger. They're not large rooms to begin with. You're not going to book a cruise in an interior cabin for the size of the room. That's just not a thing. But there was really one aspect of the Royal Caribbean Majesty of the Seas that I just cannot get over, and may not sail in an interior cabin on that ship again for that reason. The room is very small. When we went, there were three of us, my wife, my son, and myself, and there really wasn't room enough in the stateroom for us to move around. I had to go out in the hallway a lot of times to make sure that everybody had enough room to do what they needed to do. But that was, I would say, caused or at least made worse by the lack of closet space in the Royal Caribbean ship. A lot of times what we like to do is we like to settle into our stateroom and put all of our luggage and all of our clothing into the closet. In every ship that we've been on so far, except the Majesty of the Seas, the closet has been large enough that we can put all of our stuff in there. The Majesty of the Seas closet was, I think, 3 feet by 2 feet maybe, but it also had life jackets and a safe and all kinds of other stuff in there. And we had to keep our luggage on the floor next to the bed, which made for some of the cabin navigation issues. So overall, the interior cabin is better, in our opinion, on the Carnival Liberty than it is on the Royal Caribbean Majesty of the Seas. All right, here's the big one. The big question that everybody always wants to know is, how is the food? Is the food better on Royal Caribbean or is the food better on Carnival? We made a decision and we do have a favorite, but it's not as far of a spread than you may think. We do prefer the food overall on the Royal Caribbean Majesty of the Seas compared to the Carnival Liberty. But there are aspects of both that we liked and that we didn't like. The main dining room food and service was pretty comparable on both ships. There were dishes and meals that we liked on the Carnival Liberty. There were dishes and meals that we didn't like on the Carnival Liberty. And the same goes for Royal Caribbean. What really makes it stand out for me is actually the buffet. The buffet on the Majesty of the Seas, to me, was at least a full star better than the Lido Deck buffet on the Carnival Liberty. So if you prefer buffet dining, then I would definitely recommend the Majesty of the Seas over the Liberty. If you're not as big of a buffet diner, then it's probably not going to be as important, and you will likely have a pretty good experience, I think, on the Liberty. Food quality overall, I think that there was a little bit of a advantage on Royal Caribbean, but not really noticeable in most respects. So the overall food score has to go to Royal Caribbean in this case, but it's not a big differential. So this is one of my favorite categories, and one that I think is very important, especially on cruises where there is a day at sea, or for families and vacationers that like to spend time on the sun deck and at the pool. Royal Caribbean definitely wins this one for me, and I'll tell you why. The sun deck is much larger, I would say, on the Carnival Liberty, but I'm not really a suntanner. I don't like to be out in the sun. I prefer quiet, restful places. The shade is where I prefer to be, but I still like to be outside. And my boys like to spend time at the pool and on the water slides and such. So why Royal Caribbean is my favorite in this case is that there is a lot of shaded seating on the sun deck of the Majesty of the Seas. Shaded space in the middle of the afternoon on the Carnival Liberty is very difficult to come by. The Carnival Liberty, though, does win the water slide and water park aspect. So if you have kids and if your kids like to spend their time at the pools and on the water slides. The Carnival Liberty does have a full-size water slide. The Royal Caribbean Majesty of the Seas has more like a splash park. They have a water slide, but it's not like a 2 or 3 story one like the one on the Liberty was. So overall, as an adult, my choice would be the Royal Caribbean. As a family, they're both pretty good. If you've got a lot of kids and they like outdoor entertainment, you might want to opt for the Carnival Liberty. The next category is going to be entertainment. And, on these short duration cruises, these small boats, entertainment isn't that big of a deal. We did see shows on both the Liberty and the Majesty of the Seas. The venue on the Carnival Liberty is called the Venetian Palace Main Lounge. I think that lounge and that venue is better overall than the one on the Majesty of the Seas. The venue on the Majesty of the Seas is called a Chorus Line Lounge. It's larger, it's got higher ceilings, it seemed like it had slightly better acoustics. The shows were good on both ships in my opinion. I really liked the show that we saw last on the Majesty of the Seas, the Broadway style show. But the entertainment itself was better. The venue advantage, I think, goes slightly to the Carnival Liberty. For other activities in entertainment, the advantage that the Royal Caribbean Majesty of the Seas has is a rock climbing wall. There was not a rock climbing wall on the Carnival Liberty the last time I sailed, but the entire time that I was on the Majesty of the Seas, I didn't see anybody using the rock climbing wall. It also had a pretty big basketball court, the Majesty of the Seas did, in the back of the ship, along with ping pong tables, which both ships had. So I think it's a pretty even comparison here. There aren't a lot of entertainment options, so just be careful to not be disappointed if you're accustomed to the entertainment that's available on the larger ships on both Carnival and Royal Caribbean. The last area that we're going to talk about is the itineraries of both of the ships. They both obviously go to the Bahamas. Both ships go to the port of Nassau. I personally like the port of Nassau. I think it's pretty nice. It's decently safe. You can walk around, I would say, maybe compared to some other ports in the Caribbean. You're not going to get quite as much harassment as you would in some other ports. It's pretty big. There's a decent area outside of the port itself for you to explore in Nassau. The differentiator for me and the reason why I give my vote to Royal Caribbean is actually because of their private island, Coco Cay. Coco Cay is an island just north of Nassau. It's actually right next to another cruise ship's island. We saw another cruise line had their ship parked out there as well. Their private island has a lot of beaches, a lot of activities. They have a barbecue lunch while you're there. I had never been to the Coco Cay private island before. I had a really good experience there. It seems to have pretty much something for everyone, from relaxation. You can ride jet skis out in the water and like bounce houses and stuff like that. There's all kinds of stuff to do. You spend pretty close to a full day there in most cases. And for me, that was the differentiator in the Royal Caribbean sailing versus the Carnival sailing, actually was the private island. I really hope that I get a chance to go there again. That concludes the review, and I hope you enjoy. Be sure to check out our blog post